From Tim Scott to Black Lives Matters to why he's running for the United States Senate, Pastor Thomas Dixon talks to me one-on-one for this special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. Pastor Dixon.
All right.
It's so good to see you again.
Good morning, my friend.
How are you?
I'm well, and you?
I'm doing great.
Good. Thank you for having me this morning.
Well, anytime. I wanted to ask you more about well because I know you've been traveling really the state from
Yes.
Columbia to Hilton Head.
Yes.
What is it like as you sit here right now to be Thomas Dixon?
Wow. That's a very interesting question. At 63 years old and coming from the background that I came from, alcohol and drug addictions for over 30 years of my life, for the last 16 years, this social justice trek that I've been on, now to find myself in a race for the U.S. Senate and campaigning, which is something I've never done either. This is all uncharted land to me, just as the rest of my life has been post alcohol and drug addiction and incarceration. I'm really enjoying the ride, but it's extremely stressful and strenuous, especially holding on to the values that I've set before. Okay. I'm not getting ready to, I know politics gets a bad rep because of politicians, and I'm not one of those people that's going to compromise my values or the work that I've done in the past in order to get elected or in order to stay elected. So towing the road, having to say no to some people and yes to others, according to my moral values and the guidelines, the principles that I live according to, that's my guiding principle, and that allows me to enjoy this ride, even though it is stressful. Meeting new people, talking to great people in South Carolina, great people in the nation. So it gets me away from the doom and gloom that I've encountered in my day-to-day social justice work.
Speaking of which, Tim Scott, you said to follow him on Facebook.
Speaking of which,
just trying to make a good segue.
That's a great.
He's a good guy.
Yes, he is.
I didn't just start being a real black man in America, and I didn't just start addressing real black issues from a black man's perspective, because there's someone out here who's going to take my job. When you hear a black man who has never stood up for black people all of a sudden talk about black issues, and it just happens to be an election year where he's finally got a real challenger, a real black man who has been standing up for black people in his community for years, you, the public, should be insulted because this guy really thinks you're so slow that you'll fall for his trickery. Hashtag don't believe the hype. You're talking about Tim Scott.
Exactly.
And you also said this too, and you actually quoted the Bible. Mm-hmm. You said, because of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravishnous wolves, you will know them by their fruits. And that's obviously in Matthew 7, 15, and 16. Mm-hmm. And you said something very telling to me. That is, you said the following quote, "What kind of fruit is hanging on Tim Scott's tree?"
That's the question. That's the question I beg everyone to ask. What type of fruit is hanging on his tree? The scripture tells us you know a tree by its fruit, not by its leaves, not by the fact that it's a tree, but what the fruit is that's born on the limb. Okay. You know an apple tree because an apple tree bears fruit. You know a pear tree because a pear tree bears pears. In Senator Scott's life, and I have to applaud him for his position. Okay. Not his political position or the way he carries it or conducts it, but because he has made some strides as far as getting to the place that he's at. But as far as the tree that we see there, the tree that's called Tim Scott, the fruit that's on his tree has been consistently bad fruit born during his political career. He has not stood out against gun violence. He's never made even a statement about being black until right now, which leads me to question his motivations. Why now? Why all of a sudden you're black? But he's never fought for a living wage for people. He's voted consistently for taking away the benefits that our veterans have, our senior citizens have. He's voted against women's rights and funding for Planned Parenthood. So the fruit that I've seen on his tree is not good fruit. I would even call it bad fruit. Now, just because he got possibly one good apple out there on the branch amidst all that bad fruit, it don't make the tree good. It's a bad tree. And like I said, I respect him and what he's accomplished in his life.
Okay.
But as far as his position, being a black man and in a political place of authority that really has the power to sway public opinion in order to make the nation understand the issues of racial prejudice and discrimination and disparities, to make the nation know and his particular party understand that racial profiling is a reality, because he's been racially profiled since birth, if in fact that he has. But I know that every black man that I know has, and I can't count the number of times. To say 7 times, that's pretty, I don't know. I've been stopped so many times, I never even bothered to count.
Wow.
Why would he count? Or did he count? But the fruit that's on the tree is not good fruit. Okay. So if he really wanted to, to make a believer out of me, and I would really hope that he would want to, because that's what the good in people do. The good in people produce good fruit. Then he would show me that he's willing to stop the bloodshed on the streets by closing the Brady background check loop, or voting in favor or speaking out in favor of closing the Brady background check loopholes. He would speak out in favor of banning the sale of assault weapons. He would speak out in favor of closing the Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act that allows bad apple gun dealers to be protected by federal law. He would speak out against his pet project, which is school choice, and say that all of our children deserve the same quality education. So let's put our funds into elevating all schools instead of some schools, so that we can make money off it. He would, if the good fruit was there, he would talk about a prison reform system that works. He would be involved in prison reform. You see, we can't fall for the banana in the tailpipe, like Eddie Murphy said. And what I see in his profession of his blackness last week was nothing but the banana in the tailpipe, trying to get people to think that he has made this change. Well, if that's the only piece of fruit that he got, that's a bad tree still. So that's just where I'm at on that subject.
Let's turn to gun violence. Obviously, there's a tragedy going on in Baton Rouge. 3 police officers were shot dead. 6 others shot by a gunman who was African American. We still don't know all the details right now. But as we sit here this morning, Pastor Dixon, where are you emotionally?
I'm really fed up with the gun violence in our nation. And this is something that is fixable when it comes to gun violence, but we've allowed it to progress to this point. When it comes to, let me go from the backside and come forward first. With the law enforcement officers that were killed the other day, and I do believe the 3 yesterday ran into gunfire that came from a military-style assault weapon. This has been called for. The president has been calling for years to ban the sale of these things. Now, maybe, and I don't want to diminish the loss of life at all. Please do not misunderstand me. I don't want anybody to misunderstand me, because it's a tragedy. No one should lose their lives because someone else decided to take them. That's crazy. We need to stop that. But had those who were in power done what it took a long time ago, let's just say in the aftermath of 26 and 7-year-olds at a school, at an elementary school, being killed, and the request going out to ban those weapons, if they would have been banned then, maybe this guy would have gotten his hand on a 6-shooter or a 12-shooter or something much that would inflict much less danger, much less harm or damage than that. We had Pulse just a little over a month ago in Orlando. 49 dead, and we did nothing. We had San Bernardino, the dead there. Umpqua College, the dead there, and nothing's been done. And instead we have certain people like my opponent and his party in our state of South Carolina, the Republican Party also, steadily kicking the can down the road. But the more they kick the can down the road, the body count is piling up. Now the body count is piling up on the law enforcement side. And I've been asking law enforcement actually consistently to stand with us to demand the ban of assault weapons and closing the Brady background checks. But have they done it? No, because they want to stay politically correct. I'm not a politically correct individual. I'm here to save lives, period. Lives trumps political correctness every day. And so until something is done about that when it comes to the military assault weapons, we're going to see increasing problems like this. Now when we go the other way, we look at over-aggressive law enforcement, where at the end of a chance encounter, because of a supposed tail light being out, or the person looked like somebody that robbed a store because they have a big nose, or a person selling cigarettes or whatever on a corner. Those encounters require something else. Because of video video cameras, we've seen across the nation wholesale encounters between innocent black males, females also, and every now and then whites also, who at the end of the encounter are dead at the hand of law enforcement's gun. Those are some things, because of the wide scale that is on. I really do believe that we need national attention on it, national legislation, in order to help this problem, in order to fix this problem, if we're really interested in stopping the indiscriminate killing of black people. I think that we need legislation that will ensure that every law enforcement municipality and statewide entity is governed by not only their internal affairs division, but also a civilian review division that will ensure transparency between, in these particular cases, we will have the police version of the investigation, then we'll have this independent source version of the investigation. People selected by the community to represent them in these matters. And in the middle of that, I do believe that we'll find where the truth lies at, instead of the police policing the police. That's been proven that it doesn't work. Even in the case of Denzel Cornell right here, the community is still wondering what happened to the 3 minutes of the videotape that was sent to SLED. It was there when they sent it to SLED, it came back missing. And so we have another case of a black man killed in a very mysterious way that has not been cleared up. With Civilian Review Board, what we do is we would see law enforcement entities that are willing to work along with their community in order to make sure that the community knows that it's a transparency, that everything is laid out so the community will once again begin to trust law enforcement. Every day law enforcement comes to me talking about what do we do to get the people to trust us. Well, one thing you can do is bring in a Civilian Review Board. That's it. That's it. Now, beyond that, there are a couple of other steps that can be done in order to reduce these. And these are things I believe the federal legislation needs to do. Department of Justice. Why is it that in these officer-involved shootings, the Department of Justice have to be asked to come in, requested to come in, and then they decide whether or not they're going to come in? They need to be dispatched immediately, because you got a cop that killed somebody, and not let the department investigate it, but the Department of Justice investigate it. And not only that shooting, but that entire department, not only criminally, but for civil rights violations, in order to see if there is a problem within that department. And if so, let's dig that weed up so it doesn't grow back again. We need a total engagement by the Department of Justice without a community having to ask for it or wait on it or anything like that. That can be legislated through federal law also. Then on top of that, we have things like law enforcement officers going home on paid leave after killing somebody. Paid leave is vacation. So really the message that goes off to other law enforcement officers is, if I can kill somebody out here and really get vacation, a paid vacation for it. That's got to stop. Psychological evaluations are done before being hired, and then only done again after someone's dead, after a cop has shot somebody. Things change in the mind every day.
Describe to me the following one word: the recent sit-in and protests for Black Lives Matter Charleston.
Mhm.
One word to describe that.
Constitutional.
The day of prayer coming up.
Necessary.
Melvin Emanuel 1 year later.
Frustrated.
The Confederate flag removal 1 year later.
Frustrated.
The re-election of Senator Marlon Kimpton.
Encouraging.
Thomas Dixon, the person.
Encouraging.
Well, Pastor Thomas Dixon, as always, thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate you, Quintin.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.